against Peter.
Chamath, what do we think of the number of unicorns being created in the private markets? Obviously, when a company hits unicorn status, I think they're going to start buzzing around and maybe knocking on your door, and SPACs and boards might start thinking about that. These companies sometimes have $10 million, $30 million in revenue, $50 million in revenue, and they're becoming worth $1 billion. Do these valuations make sense writ large? And are you concerned that this is a bubble?
I don't think there's a bubble.
Okay. Explain why there's not a bubble in early stage private companies.
Well, I think it's because of what we just talked about, which is that these companies, by and large, are growing at incredibly fast rates, and they are replacing legacy incumbents that are growing very slowly or not at all, who have basically won for a long time with inferior products. And so as these superior products with more nimble organizations get capitalized to go to market, they're just going to win. And so I think what we're seeing is a wholesale replacement of the economy from the old to the new. And so that's why these companies will do well. And I think it's going to be a really powerful force in the world, because like the world should be a little bit more efficient and fairer when you have all this modern technology working on your behalf. So I'm a real supporter of all of this. I think there's going to be even more. And I think, the thing that we have to be comfortable with is whenever something goes from a fringe thing, which is what venture capital was, Jason, when all of us were, first in Silicon Valley 20 years ago, to, today in 2021, we're sitting here. This is going to become a fundamental part of the economy. And when that happens, there'll be more and more money. The returns won't be as good. That'll be okay, but there'll be a lot of progress. And so, we're going through the same transition that private equity did in the 80s and 90s, that hedge funds went through. Did you see all the different venture capitalists who are retiring? Bijan from Spark, the kid from Lightspeed, a bunch of other folks. Obviously, our friend Bill Gurley is stepping back.
Why do you call people kid?
Jeremy Lou is 50. He's 50.
Yeah, that
Wait,
kid from,
am I doing something wrong here? I'm like busy creating a venture firm at age almost 50.
Yeah, you're on the wrong side of this distribution curve.
So what do we think's behind this? They just made too much money and they're
made a ton of money.
Or is it because it's too competitive now and it's too hard?
They're moving to Wyoming.
I would say it's slightly different than this. I don't know. I know all of those guys, but I don't know what their motivation is. But what I would say is I tend to think that the mindset of venture has a relatively short half-life, and I think it's about 15 years.
Why?
And I think that there is because, company building is roughly a 10-year arc, like when you get into something early. And so I think that there is like a newness whenever you start. I don't think it matters what your age is. And then there is this sort of like death march that sets in by year 8 or 9. And then you try to see it through to returning the capital and making sure all the employees and founders you've been invested with land the ship. And I think what these guys did was get to that place and say, okay, I've had this 15-year beautiful arc. Do I want to do another 15-year arc? And for a lot of people, it won't make much sense. And then also, I think your patience to do it goes away, right? Because it's like, you guys know what it is. We all know what it's like. It is exhausting. It's grinding.
The amount of drama I'm dealing with right now in my portfolio is bonkers. The bad, I don't know if you're seeing this, Sacks, but the amount of shenanigans, bad behavior, fraud, lying, backstabbing is at an all-time high.
That would be your portfolio, Jacob.
Yeah.
It's literally 3 companies. I'm literally dealing with 3 companies with drama out of 350. I think it's 1 out of 100 is probably fine. But I am seeing all kinds of shenanigans. Even in the diligence phase, I'm seeing a ton of bad,
I meant
bad
something
behavior.
more tactical, which is like, for example, yesterday we're starting something really ambitious in batteries, and I have to sit there for an hour, and we have to go through ordering the equipment, setting up the lab, getting the
human resources,
and there's only so much of that you have the energy to do after a certain amount of time. It's important work. You have to do it right. But it feels a little low leverage. Now, for that CEO, it's everything. And so you have to be on top of your game to help that person. And I think this is where I appreciate their honesty in basically saying, guys, I don't have that level of detailed focus in me anymore. And that's important because in a next generation of folks who want to put in that 15-year journey,
You need somebody committed. You need somebody who's super committed.
Yeah, and I do think there's a difference between being a partner in a large partnership where you kind of have your portfolio of companies and, to Chamath's point, you're going to be on that arc with them. And then kind of building a firm from scratch where, like, quite frankly, I would go crazy the way that, you're dealing with Jason and Chamath is saying. I would get burned out if I didn't have a team. Right. So we now have like a pretty big team.
How many?
Well, just on the investment team, I think we've got about 15 people. And then we now have a bunch of operating partners. So, we were looking at what Andreessen Horowitz has done with services. We had this big debate in the venture community for a long time about whether venture firms should offer services and operating partners. And Andreessen, went hog wild with that. They've got like 200 people doing it. And I think they've proven that it works in the sense, it's not totally clear how much value they're delivering, but it clearly works in the sense that founders would like the services if they can get them.
It's great marketing, but it may not be necessary.
It's great marketing.
Because if you're a great founder, when you were a great founder, you wouldn't want Andreessen Horowitz telling you how to run your HR, doing your marketing for you at Yammer.
Right. But so what we've done is focus on bringing on not 200 people, but an expert in every functional area that a SaaS company might need, because you do want access to an expert. When you're setting up the department, you want to go talk to the digital marketing person or the legal person or,
Smart.
We have an executive briefing center now. So we do believe that there is a version of the services model that makes a lot of sense, and we are building that. If I had to do all of that value add myself, I would burn out.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a very good point. I literally last week launched the syndicate.com/SaaS, a SaaS syndicate, just for the same reason. So I can build a group of individuals who are focused just on that and who have that domain expertise. But the great founders do not want you up in their business. So I'm concerned with like
that's why we have we call it a teach them how to fish model, where we don't want to do the work. We want to give them an expert as a resource who can meet with them, show them some best practices.
Do you have people though coming to you expecting you to do the work? Because that's what I had happen sometimes. Is they were like, although can you find us a developer? And I'm like, no, but I can talk to you about finding developers, but I don't have a recruiter on staff. Do you have a recruiter on staff?
Yeah, we actually do now. We have 3 recruiters on staff. So
you're paying $500,000 a year to recruit for your companies. That's a big advantage.
Basically.
That's a big advantage. Is it working? Are you actually landing developers?
Yeah. I mean, look, we can't
Friedberg and I don't give a fuck about any of this.
All right. Well, anyway, this is us in the weeds. So you want to talk about some...
Okay, well, just to up level it for a second. I just want to go back to this like golden era point when we're talking about venture capital, because look, obviously in the weeds, we're going to talk about our problems, but I really think that what's happening here with 1,000 new unicorns being minted every year is just unbelievable. If you look at the number of billionaires in the US, I just Googled this, there were 614 billionaires in the US as of October 2020. Now there's probably more. I don't know. Let's say there's 1,000. Well, if you're minting 1,000 new unicorns every year, how many billionaires is that creating?
I mean, how many millionaires? More importantly, how many people who were making $50,000 to $250,000 a year before they joined the ecosystem and now are worth millions will buy homes, hire people, start the next...
But let me just give you guys the counterpoint to that, which I'm not necessarily arguing, but this is what I think the narrative is, which is that those businesses that are kind of, accumulating wealth and accumulating revenue are effectively destroying the old economy and shutting down companies and destroying jobs.
There's 11 million job openings. That's bullshit.
I don't believe it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
I think it's creative destruction.
But it is disruptive, right? So there is kind of a temporal flux, and there's a flux of people across from the old economy to the new economy. And it's that flux that I think creates the great uncertainty and the great heartache that everyone's trying to solve for.
That's the hand-wringing. That's the hand-wringing.
This is why it is so important to get corporate taxation right. Because if you're going to replace GDP dollar for dollar, don't focus on the fewer employees that work there. Focus on the largest number possible, which is the revenue that these employees are helping to generate for these companies. So if you had much, much higher corporate taxation, you can play around with all the personal taxation you want. But if a lot of people do get shut out of the economy, you're not going to make nearly as much for the government as you would by taxing companies more.
Chamath, should there be a backstop? Because we know tax law is so sophisticated, and if you're intelligent, you could make it seem like you didn't make any money because you're investing, you're distributing, yada, yada. Should there just be hey, listen, whatever you want to do with your taxes is fine, but X% of your top line revenue is your base tax, and you cannot get around that. Should there be something like that?
There's a couple things that this tax bill attempted to do, which could be really powerful if it does get passed. I think that corporations should pay a large tax. I think that they should be forced to spend a certain percentage on R&D. And I think they should be forced to spend a certain percentage on basically benefits for their employees. And I think that would do a lot to level the playing field. Then I do think that you can have much higher individual taxation, but you need to make it simpler because there's too many easy ways, like that ProPublica article showed, for you to play games for individuals to not pay taxes. And so you got to simplify all of this stuff because it's too complicated. So if you're rich enough to hire a fleet of lawyers, you will work your way around it.
Yes.
Period.
And they repealed it as part of the AMT was for corporations was repealed as part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I think. I don't know where that stands, but it does seem like a lot of companies.
I don't know how that makes sense, JCal. I mean, like some businesses run high margin, some are low margin, some are losing money, some are over investing.
No, it's complicated. I don't have the solution. That's why I'm sort of saying, well, I think one of the optics issues here is, people are like, that company didn't pay any taxes. That company sells this many iPhones. That company sells this many.
That's because they're doing what tax laws were designed to do, which is to encourage investment.
So how do you fix it? Give me a solution, Friedberg.
I think that once businesses are mature and they start dividending cash and making distributions and they're profitable, that might be the time to tax them. I'm not sure.
Why would they ever do that if they had an army of people saying, hey, you don't have to?
You don't want them to, because if they're investing in growth, they're creating jobs and they're growing the economy. And that's what
so the status quo is fine?
I don't think they're creating as many jobs as you think, but they are growing the economy. That's why you have to tax the corporation, because that's the effective proxy for taxing GDP.
Yeah. Look, I would be all about, I'll wear my libertarian hat again for a second, but I would be all about taxation if I felt like my dollars had a positive ROI where they ended up. And the problem right now is government spending is set up in such a way that it's effectively been gamified and people extract capital from the government. And my dollars are not getting a positive ROI for me or for society. I would rather have them sit somewhere else. Which is why
you left, let's be honest, that's why you left San Francisco. I mean, it's just they're spending more.
Why I left San Francisco. I've got a family and I need a backyard, so that's a little different.
But isn't part of it that you are?
San Francisco is a separate degree of incompetence. But yes, you're right.
They're spending more than ever, and it's getting worse.
San Francisco is a whole nother nightmare, JCal. Well, I'm just speaking in general.
Or California writ large.
In general, right now, whether it's the state level or the federal level, it feels to me, and I think it feels to a lot of people, that dollars aren't being spent in a way that's generating a return for the taxpayer. And I think we all feel that way. And I think that's what's frustrating. It's not about how much one's being taxed. It's about how are those tax dollars being spent? And are they being spent in a way that secures the future of our nation, of our people, of our livelihoods, et cetera, and giving everyone access to opportunity? What's happened is we've created things like student loan programs and, housing programs and infrastructure programs that are literally just giving away money to private companies that are profiteering off of government spending.
Right.
And it's crony capitalism, as our favorite professor Scott Galloway says. It's one thing I really do agree with him on.
Takes?
It is that there is this notion of crony capitalism where the United States and state governments and even local governments, as seen in San Francisco, California, all the way up to the federal level, are spending money in a way that I think we all feel is benefiting some disproportionately to most. Now, if there was a high degree of taxation and everyone was benefited in a meaningful way and those programs were well managed and capital flowed meaningfully to support everything we want to support, great. I think everyone would raise their hand, raise two hands and say, tax the heck out of me. Let's make that happen. But that's not what happens. And I think that's the primary aversion to high taxation.
Sacks, you get the final word?
Yeah. I mean, look, what I'm worried about is taxes are going up big time, no matter what happens in Washington. Spending is going up big time. We now have peacetime deficits that are the biggest that they've ever been. The national debt, the peacetime national debt's the highest it's ever been. We have a looming debt crisis in China. We have supply chain shortages.
What could go wrong?
I mean, there's a lot of things here that could upset the apple cart. And what I'm afraid of is we're going to look back at this year, the 1,000 unicorns being minted, and say that really was the golden era, and everything happened after that. We really screwed it up.
You sound like the old guy at Starbucks that says that every generation and complains about the last generation.
No,
we're in the golden era and it's all downhill.
How much does music suck today,
Normally,
I will say how impressive it is that 10 years ago, none of those unicorns existed. And it is likely the case that $3 trillion of value was created via private funding in private companies over the last 10 years. So all these entrepreneurs, all these employees, anyone working at these businesses, anyone involved in these businesses should be thrilled about the fact that you from zero created $3.5 trillion of value in 10 years. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, I'm not trying to create nostalgia about the past. I'm talking about the present and trying to preserve it because I'm seeing some storm clouds on the horizon.
Yeah.
I would like to play the best song from Tony as we leave.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, we're heading out. This one's for you, London Breed.
State approved entertainment. You can take off your mask for this entertainment. It's so good.
Do you guys watch Squid Game? Anybody watch Squid Game?
No, we have lives.
Nobody watched Squid Game. Okay.
My kid's been talking about that. Should I be letting them watch Squid Game, or is it?
No, it's the most violent Korean horror dystopian show ever watched. They're going to be scarred for life.
Oh, I want to watch
Sacks.
that. Hey, Sacks, as a follow-up, did you stop your kids from TikTok?
Did you take your kids off TikTok?
I went in there. I'm like, kids, what are you watching? I'll tell you in a second.
Okay. Yeah, so did you take your kids off TikTok?
Yeah, I went in there. I was like, kids, what are you watching? They're like, Dad, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, and they said, tell us our names. And he was like, okay, I'll be right back. Jacqueline?
If you can tell me to turn off TikTok by my name, I'll do it. David's like, see you later.
No,
Tell me my birthday.
The conversation was, what are you guys watching on TikTok? I hear it's all sex and drugs. They're like, no, we're watching dance videos. I'm like, okay, go ahead. I trust you.
The dance videos are literally like absolutely sex and drug based, every single one of them. It is so deviant and insane.
Stop. It is not that you're so exaggerating.
I am not exaggerating. Literally, if you listen, take the most obscene lyric to obscene hook to any rap song, that's what trends.
Oh my God, it's
TikTok.
so true, guys. Every generation says the same about the next.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable, right?
No, but it is like explicit. Listen,
they said
whatever.
This about, Nirvana,
I just want to
and Pearl Jam, and all the way back to the Beach Boys.
They
like
said it
every
about Elvis and
generation.
shaking his hips.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, no. This when I say it's explicit, it is literally explicit.
You just don't get the youth, J. Cal. You don't understand them.
I think I understand it a little bit too well. Anyway,
The
Sacks,
youths.
do not.
The youths.
The youths.